This podcast is for you. Your co-hosts, Ben Dodge and Eric Huso at Effect Epic Consulting, believe that your potential is limitless. Tapping into this potential is how you can affect epic results in your life, relationships, and business. Welcome to the Principles of Epic Growth.
Howdy, brother.
Another day.
Another day. It is a great day.
Dude, this is one of my favorite things I look forward to doing, this podcast.
It lights me up. I love it. I love learning with you and from you. I love the feedback that we get from our listeners and the difference that it's making for them. It's really invigorating.
The feeling's mutual, man. I always learn something. I learn something from you. Sometimes I learn something from me. It's weird.
Like, isn't that the coolest? Did I really just say that?
You'll say something and go, what the?
Somebody write that down.
No, it's incredible. Today we're gonna really address something that truly is a rampant problem in our society, for the young, for the old, for everyone.
We see it all the time.
And it's a belief in yourself. It's understanding the difference between self-confidence, self-esteem, and how to build it, how to apply it. Sometimes we think even we might know just on a cursory level why it's so important to have self-confidence, but we're going to go into that too. Like, why is it really? Like, what can you do with it? What can't you do without it? Self-confidence, self-esteem, believing in yourself, like that's the stuff legends are made of. And it's really the difference between somebody operating on an epic level and not.
And before we jump into that, be aware that if you're a person that struggles with self-confidence, you might be tempted to jump into the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset.
Yeah. What do you mean? Explain that.
So, like, you might just think, I don't have an outgoing personality, or I'm not like that. I can't do that. Those people, they're arrogant. They're self-conceited. That's not me. All that's going to do is just put walls around you that's going to limit you, and you're not going to hear what we're trying to say today. And you're not going to get the message that will help you to remove some roadblocks that are getting in the way of your performance.
For those of you listening that you can't see me just head nodding back here.
Yep.
Yeah, so look, my heart just bleeds for those who struggle with self-confidence. I've got lots of dear friends out there, clients, family members, friends, all like that, and many of them struggle with this.
Yeah.
And it's a real deal. It can lead to other things like depression and other problems. It's like a domino effect. And self-confidence and self-esteem are very related and very different, and we're going to definitely break them down for you today. And even those who feel they're like really self-confident, like you might not be. And for those who don't think you are, like you might be.
Yeah. And
for those who look up to the loudmouth whatever and go, man, that guy is the most confident, son of a gun I know. Truth be told, most of the people I know that are loudmouths struggle the most with self-confidence, and it's his or her way of compensating. So let's just be careful about how we judge and look at people, and let's talk about it on a real, raw, and authentic level with you.
Yeah, and we're going to be sharing some personal experiences, personal stories where we'll be totally authentic with you about some of the things that we've learned as we've grown and developed our own self-confidence through the journey that we're on individually.
True. I love getting dirt on you, actually. I can't wait to hear more stories. Yeah, so, without further ado, let's jump into it. I want to start maybe by setting the scene with a Hindu legend.
Oh, I love this one.
And I mean, I don't know what it is with me and Hindu legends, but I might have shared this before. I'm not sure. If so, give me a shout out on the podcast comments. Let me know. But basically, this belief in yourself, this power, this your awesomeness, your amazingness. According to the Hindu legend, once upon a time we were all gods as human beings, and we abused that power. And so the greater gods, apparently there are greater gods. Look, I'm not Hindu, so I might mess some of this up, guys. But there are greater gods out there. And they took the power from us mere mortals, and they had to hide it somewhere so that we wouldn't find it, because we're greedy and we want that power back. We want to be godlike. We want to, be amazing. Our awesomeness, we need to find it. So legend has it that they discussed, the greater gods had a council, and they were just discussing this, and they said, hey, let's hide it way up in the sky. And they decided, nah, that's a bad idea, because these humans, they'll figure out how to
build a rocket.
That's right. We'll build a tower, a rocket, an airplane, something, stilts that are huge, like something to figure that out. All right, so let's bury it deep in the earth. Well, that's a simple no-brainer. They're diggers. They love to find treasure. They're going to uncover every rock they can to try and find this thing. All right, let's put it in the ocean. Let's bury it in the ocean. Yeah, they fish for it. They'll build a submarine. Who knows? They kept coming up with these ideas, and they kept getting shot down. Finally, one of them had a brilliant idea of a place that we would never look. Too much work, too scary. We would never think to look in this place. So it's the best place to hide our own awesomeness and our own power. They said, let's hide it deep within themselves. And if you can't see me right now, like I'm pointing to inside my chest, right? So let that marinate with you for a minute as a context for what we're talking about. This self-confidence, self-esteem, this
power.
This belief in yourself is powerful. And from a Hindu legend or perspective, it's a power that we forget, right, in ourselves. That's what the legend's supposed to teach us. We forget that it's within ourselves. We don't have to base our value on other people. We don't have to place our confidence and our self-esteem, our value, and all these other things on the circumstances of the world, on our own personal achievements or circumstances. There's a lot of things that you can do inside yourself to grow, this incredible, sustaining, and epic confidence and self-esteem.
Love it. One of my favorite quotes, it's short, sweet, 2 words by Socrates. Know thyself. Know thyself. The key for you to be able to truly unleash the power, the possibilities of what we're talking about today is for you to look inside of yourself and truly know yourself. Know what your commitments are. Know what your intentions are. Know what your desires are. Know what your strengths are. Know what your weaknesses are. Know what you want to create. Know that. And the possibilities just start to pop.
That's right. Have you seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Excellent, dude.
I haven't seen it for a long time.
That thing's
but
classic.
Didn't they call him Socrates? Just saying.
Socrates, yeah.
Okay, that's funny. Sorry for the diversion.
In fact, that movie polluted me so much that every time I say Socrates, I have to
say
second guess myself. Yeah. Like, don't say Socrates.
It's Socrates. All right, so let's start first with a healthy definition of self-confidence and self-esteem, because they're very different.
Yeah. So self-confidence is being able to trust in your own abilities, to trust in your capacities, to trust in your judgments. And it's a belief that you can truly successfully face all the day-to-day challenges and demands that you face.
I love it. So trusting yourself, trusting your own abilities, self-confidence, trusting your abilities. Compare that to self-esteem, which is your belief about your own self-worth. It's really, in essence, your relationship with yourself, your value through your own eyes. It can be made up of self-respect or the belief that you are worthy of happiness, love, and success. I love that last little part, the belief that you are worthy of happiness, love, and success. That's self-esteem. How do you esteem yourself, your relationship with yourself? There's a really incredible professor, researcher, scientist, really social scientist named Nathaniel Branden.
Yeah, Dr. Nathaniel Branden.
He spent his life dedicated to the topic of self-esteem.
Great book, Six Pillars of Self-Esteem.
He's written a handful, but the one that's probably most notable is that one. Yeah, 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. Definitely highly recommend it. We won't, have time to break that down for you today, that entire book, but it's worth the read. It's really incredible. But that idea or paradigm, it's your relationship with yourself, and that you're worthy of happiness, love, and success. It's your belief about your own value, your own self-worth, versus, let's compare that to versus self-confidence, where you're just trusting your own ability, your own capacity, your judgments. It's a belief that you can literally face challenges every day. I love it. So yeah, they're completely different things, and yet they're in the same family.
I love the association with belief with self-esteem. To believe something is to act on something that is not seen. To act. And action is a key component that we're going to bring up over and over today. Because self-confidence, self-esteem doesn't come by sitting back.
That's
Doesn't
right.
come by observation. It comes through action. Act. And fundamental to my personal definition of faith is acting on things that are not seen.
Yeah, I love it. And with self-confidence, of course, trusting your own abilities, trusting your own capacity, your own judgments. That doesn't mean that you are going to make good ones all the time. It doesn't mean that all the decisions that you're going to make. Self-confidence is primarily decision-based, guys. That's the big secret out there, all right? A self-confident person can make a decision and move on, period. And he or she trusts his ability with that decision, trusts the outcome of that decision, trusts that he or she has the capacity from and or resulting in that decision. And look, it doesn't mean those decisions are right. We're not perfect. Those decisions are never going to be perfect. But the lack of self-confidence, no coincidence here that is indecision. A self-confident person can make a decision and move on. And you can trust, here's another way to say this, trust that you can learn from your own decisions. A self-confident person will trust that he or she can make the decision and that things are going to be okay. Yeah. That they can face the day-to-day challenges and demands and be okay, even if they make the wrong decision.
Even if it means failure.
Because they trust they can learn from that.
Yeah.
Right? So they trust that. They trust that they can learn from it, that they can move on and do, the fear of decision, the fear of failure, a lot of those things are going to whittle away your self-confidence, if not completely erode it.
Yeah. A year ago, I was in a training meeting where I was doing some training with a bunch of teachers.
Was that traffic school, you mean? Sorry, just kidding.
So in this training meeting, I mentioned that I was a person who lacked confidence, that in prior years that I was a person that didn't really see myself as a leader and didn't really see myself as somebody who could make a difference. And afterwards, I had somebody come up to me. He's like, "You're kidding me, right?" Like, "You're kidding." No, it really was me. Like I really just in the last 5-6 years have really kind of, become a upgraded version of myself. And a lot of that I'm going to attribute to you, Ben. So in terms of acting.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, you did one good thing in the world.
One good thing.
You invited me to do Iron Man. Okay.
I remember. I duped you, you mean?
Yeah, you duped me to do Ironman, and that planted some seeds in me. So I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe I could run a marathon. I didn't believe I could swim. I knew I could bike, but I didn't believe that I could do all three of those. And I certainly didn't believe that I could run after riding my bike because, after a long bike ride, my legs felt like jelly. And I didn't believe in myself. And it wasn't until the action of actually doing it that I recognized that, hey, I can do this. And then that created a foundation that I've continued to build on in other elements of my life, in business, etc., that has served me so powerfully, where I was able to face a fear, conquer the fear, and then build through that. So when I was a kid, I went through some stages of being overweight and being alone or being picked on or bullied and those kinds of things. I was in the band. I wasn't on the football team.
If you look at him now, by the way, you'd swear he was a football star, yet the dude was a band geek. And I say that affectionately because it's not fair to say geek, by the way. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible your talent there.
The people in the band, we take that as a compliment.
Sure, is incredible trombone player.
I was embarrassed of it, though.
Why?
Because, I wasn't, the girls aren't flocking over the trombone players in high school.
It's true.
And so I didn't see myself as a leader. A couple years later, after I was out of high school, I had some really great leadership opportunities, and being asleep to it was still super effective, and I had people compliment me on it. And I'd always kind of downplay it, like, no, I'm not a good leader. Like I'm just a nobody. I never really saw myself as that. Throughout my life, I've continued to grow, learn, have opportunities, and I never really saw myself as somebody who was a leader. Never really saw myself as somebody who could make a difference. And that's when I say I attribute it to you, because you invited me to do that Ironman, and that just opened up some possibilities, opened my eyes to what happens when we act on fear.
Yeah. React to it. Act because of it. Yeah. Interesting. All letting the world and or your fears, right, circumstances, control you, as opposed to you happening to them. Yeah, I love it. Look, to not fear is to be inhuman. Of course we fear. Of course we're anxious. Of course we get scared and nervous about things. Our choices that surround that are more defining than the fact that we feel those things. So for those who struggle with self-esteem, in other words, your relationship with yourself, how you value your own worth. For those of you that struggle with self-confidence, you don't trust your own ability or capacity or judgment. You don't really feel like you can do that. You don't believe that you can face a challenge successfully. For those of you that feel those things, feeling that is okay.
That's human.
How do you react to those feelings? How do you get to a space where you feel that a lot less? And sometimes, if at all, given the circumstances, you can feel that not at all. So
you'll never run away from the human being inside of you. So, like Ben said, to not fear is to not be human. So you're going to feel fear. For me, I have to be awake to it. So when I feel fear for something, I have to say, oh, there I'm feeling fear. Now, what's causing this fear? Is this fear because it's something that I've never done before? Is this fear because it's something I've done before and I failed at?
Yeah, let's unpack that. So, a fear of something that we've never done before. You're not afraid that you've never done that before. What's the underlying fear? That you might not succeed at it because you've never done it before.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Think about that. I've got a ton of friends that I invite to do really stupid things that are hard, that are challenging, that they've never done before. In fact, just a couple days ago, we rode at 3 a.m. You came.
Yeah,
We rode at 3 a.m, which is early. It's July in Arizona. It's hot. We're at 3 a.m. We're riding for about 150 miles, I think, give or take, on our bikes. That's a long time to sit in a bike, on a bike. And there's a couple guys that have never been out on that road before. It's pretty challenging. It's pretty hot. And the fear, it's a perfect example. The fear of, I've never done this before, so I'm afraid, is really rooted in something deeper. Like, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do well.
I might not finish.
Yeah, or how am I going to look if I don't do well in front of these other guys? Like on and on and on, right? Just ask yourself those questions. When you've felt afraid of something because it's the first time you've done it, you've never done it before, ask yourself what you're really afraid of. Interesting. Yeah, what are you really afraid of out there? When you feel like, oh man, I've never done this before, what are you really afraid of? Like, it could be a new weightlifting challenge and you've never lifted that much weight. Are you afraid because you've never lifted that much weight? No. What are you really afraid of? Like, you might not be able to in front of your friends. You might get hurt. On and on and on. There's different things. But the fact that you've never done before is rarely the thing that freaks us out.
Yeah.
But that's what we mentally jump to first, because it's easier to excuse ourselves with it.
And back to the earlier quote that I mentioned from Socrates.
Yeah, good old Socrates.
Is know thyself. This is what I'm talking about when I say know thyself, is when you're feeling these feelings, be awake to the feelings, recognize that, hey, this is the human being in me, and then do a little self-analysis. What is it that I'm really, truly afraid of?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So why do we even care about self-confidence and self-esteem? Why are those things that we need to develop and strengthen? Like, honestly.
Well, without it, you just totally limit what you can do. You limit your possibilities. You limit your influence. You limit your joy. You limit your happiness. You live a life really of mediocrity.
Oh, nails on a chalkboard
Yeah.
for me to hear that. Yeah, it's true. Life of mediocrity. Yeah, and how can you be happy? Like, think about that. How can you actually be happy if you live a life without self-confidence and without self-esteem? If you're never able to trust your abilities, capacities, judgments, you don't feel or believe that you can face a challenge on a day-to-day basis, and you, on the other hand, self-esteem, you don't feel like you're worthy of even being happy. You don't feel like you're worthy of love in your life, or you don't feel like you're worthy of success. And you maybe rightfully so, but you blame it on your childhood and what parents or other siblings or people have done to you. There's a bunch of things, from abuse to just being bullied to parents telling you you're not good enough. I mean, how many times have we heard that? So how can you truly be happy? I mean, I'm not saying you don't experience happy moments, but how can you truly be happy without self-esteem and without self-confidence? It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not to mention the incredible limits, like you said, that are placed in your life by yourself, not by the people that, abused or whatever you like, right? Like this,
Self-imposed.
to deny yourself of self-confidence and self-esteem, to not intentionally develop these in your life is a bad choice. It's a choice to really put limits on yourself and to deny yourself a measure of liberating happiness.
Yeah. So you want to be awake to some of the contexts that use you. Some of these contexts are rooted in I'm not good enough that Ben mentioned earlier. So you might not feel like you're smart enough. You might not feel like you have enough experience. You might not feel like you're good looking enough. You might not feel like you're athletic enough. You might not feel like you're musical enough. You might not feel like you're the right gender. You might not feel like you had the right parents, or you might not feel like, it's rooted in not being good enough at something. And you want to identify some of these contexts that use you. You'll listen when you have conversations with your friends, when you have conversations with people you care about, they'll bubble up. They'll mention them. They'll say things like, "Yeah, I could never do that. Like I don't have the determination to do that race, right? I could never do that. I don't have enough money to do that." These are all contexts that we've self-imposed upon ourselves that just limit us. So you want to identify them and be awake to them, so that when they do come up, you can identify them for what they are. That's a story. That's a story that I made up. That's a story that isn't really true. It's false evidence appearing real. That I don't want that story to use me. And then I create a new story that I can then walk into and live into.
Yeah, I love it. I'll share a story about this experience I had with Kokoro.
Mm-hmm.
Kokoro is, I forget the Japanese meaning actually, but it's a Japanese term incorporated by a Navy SEAL commander, former commander, but not a former Navy SEAL, right?
I think it has something to do with alignment with heart and mind and body and soul.
Yeah, it's basically all being aligned into one. I just forget the exact wording. Anyhow, essentially, Mark Devine is a Navy SEAL, because you never say they're former Navy SEALs, even though they're not currently active Navy SEAls. But he was a former commander in the Navy SEAls, right? He started a camp called Kokoro, and it's 3-4 days of brutal hell. It's essentially Hell Week that you can go to as a civilian. And he created this opportunity for people to be better prepared to enter into BUDS, the actual Navy SEALs. So most people that go are indeed special forces, soldiers already in the military that are aiming to be Navy SEAls, and so they want this experience. Anyways, I walked into Kokoro believing I could accomplish anything I wanted to. I mean, I definitely had a certain measure of self-confidence and self-esteem.
And for those of you that know Ben, you've had some experience of that. You know that he is confident. You know that when you're with him, like you just feel it. You know that.
Thank you. I've done, I don't remember how many Ironmans and other, long endurance, stupid things before I went to Kokoro. And so I walked in there believing I could accomplish anything. The valuable thing for me when I graduated Kokoro, class 26, Huya, was that I walked out knowing I could accomplish anything. It was an incredible self-confidence and self-esteem building experience for me. For others who did not make it, it was crushing, right? They do their best as Navy SEALs to drown you, like literally. But also, I mean, they're out there getting under your skin, pushing you to the mental, emotional, and physical and spiritual limits that you can possibly, in fact, you can't imagine the limits that you're going to end up going to when you're going through these kinds of programs. In fact, a couple of people that had been through Buds later had said that Kokoro was just as hard, if not harder, than actual Hell Week. I mean, they really put you to the limit here on purpose. And so why? Why did I walk out of there with an increased self-esteem and self-confidence and others didn't? That merits a little bit of discussion, I think, a little bit of question. And it's your paradigm. It's the way you look at that and approach things. If you believed the things that people were telling you, in this scenario, it was the Navy SEAL instructors, the cadre, the staff, they call themselves the cadre. If they're there to tell you how terrible you are, and the more you listen to it and the more you believe it, then the more that becomes your reality. And those people, they went over and they ring the bell. They quit. The more you tuned that out, focused on what you're committed to, what your clear intentions are, then you were able to push through, and out of that emerged an increased self-confidence and self-esteem. So I learned a valuable lesson there, that the foundation or the building blocks for self-confidence and self-esteem is to identify your own clear commitments and to be constantly, never-endingly engaged in the pursuit of your commitments.
Powerful lesson. Let's review those two principles, because there's two things that have to happen simultaneously. One, you have to tune out the voices of other people, the voices of the world. Okay? That comparison and listening to what other people are saying, sometimes it will serve you. Most of the time it won't.
It's poison.
Tune that out.
Who cares?
Okay? Tune that out.
Yeah.
Even if it's positive acknowledgement,
Yeah.
like what
Whatever.
good is it that somebody says, "Oh yeah, you're so great, you did this, you did that."
Okay,
like,
thanks.
what good does that do? Like,
Yeah.
tune that out, because that same person a week from now could say, "You're a piece of crap. You can't do this. You can't do that."
Whatever.
Okay, tune that out, and at the same time, focus in and tune in to what you're committed to.
A constant, never-ending, unceasingly engagement in the pursuit of your commitments. That's going to ground you no matter what the storms of life are, and allow you, by pushing through the challenges, and you can be able to do that because you've got a laser focus and you're constantly, unceasingly engaged in the pursuit of that commitment, that you'll tune out everything else and you'll emerge like it's cheeseball, but you'll emerge like a butterfly, right? You start out as a little raunchy worm and you emerge as a gorgeous butterfly with the self-confidence to go with it, because you tuned everything out and you were constantly, unceasingly engaged in the pursuit of your commitments.
Yeah.
That, my friends, is the foundation and the building block for building self-confidence. So be clear on your commitments. I mean, I don't know how many podcasts we end up saying, you got to know what you're committed to.
It's true. That's why we say it.
Yeah.
So here's a couple things that we can do for action. Okay. So some of you might not be ready to sign up for Kokoro. I'm one of them. Okay. That doesn't call to me. For Ben, it totally called to him, and it put him on a trajectory that, we're seeing the fruits and the results of it. Okay. You can have Kokoro-like experiences with what you are committed to.
Well said.
Okay. You can have those alignment of body, mind, spirit experiences if you will give complete commitment to those things. And here's a couple that, for me, have done the similar kinds of things. Number one is a commitment to my character. A commitment to being a person of integrity. A commitment to being a person that respects other people, a commitment to being a servant leader, a commitment to being accountable. So, in other words, a commitment to character as a way of being. The other thing for me is commitment to relationships. So as a guy, I'm not going to say as a guy because that's a fixed mindset. Yeah. Me personally, I didn't have a lot of deep relationships. I had a lot of superficial relationships. And that was because I was generally inauthentic. I didn't want to be seen as not good enough. I didn't want to get into the bar and do the extra weight because I didn't want to not do it and look like a failure in front of other people. And so I was really cautious. I was really, careful. I didn't push the limits on a lot of things. And that mindset carried over into relationships where I didn't have a lot of deep relationships. A lot of good friends, a lot of, good relationships, superficial, but not deep. And so a commitment to deepen the relationship with my wife really changed things for me. To be committed to her and to be committed to the experience that she had being married to me. So those are two things for me personally: a commitment to my character and a commitment to building relationships that have made a huge difference for me.
Yeah, and I get to witness that. You're incredible to me, and you've come a long ways. Not that you had a long ways to go, but I'm just saying it's really impressive. Your commitment to your relationships has changed everything. Just with your kids, even, I get to see it. So as your brother-in-law, I get to benefit from that relationship, by the way, too. So I appreciate your commitment to our relationship. Okay. I have a good story for you too. There's a country song. I think, man, I'm digging deep here on the memory, so correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. You're a music guy. You're a trombone guy we're talking about, so maybe you know this. I think Kenny Rogers sings it. This is the second time Kenny Rogers has made an appearance. You got to know when to hold. Not that one.
Know when to walk away.
Yeah, no, this one is about a boy. I love the story. It's powerful to me. It's about a boy who he feels he's the best baseball player, particularly home run hitter, on the planet. And he tosses the ball up to just smash it. He's pitching to himself basically. He tosses the ball up and he winds up, man, he places everything he's got into that swing. And he just doesn't connect with the ball. Strike one. He does it again. Strike two. He's a little anxious. He's got to smash this ball out of the park, and he fails. He strikes out. He pitches into himself. By the way, just tosses the ball up, but he cannot hit it for the life of him. He basically turns around, smiles, says something along the lines about, "How about that? I didn't know I could pitch like that." But think about that. There's a few things that you can do to help build self-confidence. And I think we identified the first and most important one would be, and this goes the same with self-esteem, by the way. I mean, they're different, but the building blocks are going to be very similar. Yeah. Is to identify your clear commitments and to be, here is the key to the commitments, to be identify your commitments. It's not just identify them, it's to be constantly, unceasingly engaged in the pursuit of those. That will build brick by brick. It will build your self-confidence, and it will build your self-esteem because you're placing your self-worth on something entirely different than what other people are telling you. Mm-hmm. Remember the story about you got to tune out the garbage. So both of those are fantastic. So with that first one, I would suggest you have to use it or lose it. Self-confidence and self-esteem are like any other character trait, muscle. It
has a short shelf life.
You use it or lose it. So challenge yourself daily, in terms of confidence and self-esteem. Make sure you're making the right choices. Trust yourself. Place your self-worth in the right appropriate places. And if you ever wonder what that is, go back to your commitments.
Yeah.
That's where you place it. I would also say, like that story from the boy, one of the other building blocks is to learn from your mistakes. Depression is a real thing, and I know a lot of people that struggle with it. Try to get to a space where through your value on yourself and what you're committed to, and your confidence being built by constantly pursuing those commitments, that you can get to a place that you expect a failure every once in a while, if not frequently. But because you're constantly engaged in that, then you'll know that you can learn from that, and the failure will be less significant the next time. You know what I mean? And then eventually you'll find the success. So like the boy who struck himself out, he found something that he ended up being really good at, and that was pitching, right? So learn from your mistakes. And then like the Hindu legend we talked about before, one of the other building blocks I think to all of this that's important is be awake to your own awesomeness. Your self-worth is inside you. Your self-confidence is already there inside you as well. You don't have to look outside of yourself, nor should you. That's a really shaky foundation to build a building on. Like, you're solid inside yourself. Look there, start there, build there. Yeah. Don't go to some sandy seashore and start building something. You build inside your own self. That's where it's going to be stronger.
So this is the relationship that you have with yourself. And this is where you want to go back and listen to our podcasts on integrity. We've done a couple of them on integrity, right? Because integrity is all about your relationship with yourself. You're giving your word, you're honoring your word. It has nothing to do with other people. It has nothing to do with the thing. It has to do with you and your relationship with yourself and what you've given your word to, what you're committed to. So go back and listen to those. That can as you tie it into self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence, remember, it's about the relationship that you have with yourself.
That's right. Another one, work hard. Push through challenges, push through difficulties, work hard. So self-confidence, self-esteem is created from within. It's strengthened by hard work. Okay? You don't build something like that sitting on the couch watching the world go by.
Yep.
Okay.
We've said it over and over. Action, action, action. Take action. If you fear something, do the thing that you fear. If the thought of picking up the phone and calling somebody causes you fear, like, that's the thing you need to do right now. If the thought of signing up for that triathlon just gets you butterflies and diarrhea, like, go sign up for that triathlon right now.
Sounds like a good thing to do. Yeah. Oh, but my knee hurts. That's okay.
Yeah, sign up for it.
Who cares?
Get that knee rehabilitated.
Yeah, that's right. Do everything you can. Yeah, I agree. Again, that's all part of constantly being engaged or in the pursuit of your commitments. Like, if you're on the couch not engaging in your commitments, you are, in that moment at least, weakening self-confidence, weakening self-esteem, and opening up a vulnerability or temptation to do something other than what you're committed to. And your confidence will wane in that moment, right? And we all have moments like that. I mean, that's going to be normal.
And this is especially important for our elderly population. Those of you that are listening that are older, that you're out of the career stage, you're out of the raising kids stage.
I think you're talking about your mom. Just kidding, Mom. She is a loyal listener.
She is.
She's grinning probably.
Within 2 hours of every podcast being posted, I get a text message. Yeah. Oh, love that.
I love it so much. It's life-changing.
Shout out to Mom. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
But yeah, so as an elderly person, you have to be awake to this. That, you have to remember what you're committed to and act with intention towards those commitments. Otherwise, you won't act. You'll forget what you're committed to. You won't act intentionally. And then you'll be wondering what your purpose is. And with that, the discouragement and the lack of fulfillment and the lack of happiness. So the elderly people that I know that have just joy and are still making a difference, they are in action, surrounded what they're committed to and their intentions.
One of the things I like to say, and this is because it's a pet peeve of mine, that when it's not this way, is as long as there's breath in your lungs, you can do something, and you should be. So as long as there's breath in your lungs, then you should be constantly engaged in the pursuit of your commitments. There is no respite from this.
No retirement.
There is no break from this. There is no, I finally reached an old age, I can just stop. I mean, there are people, no question, there are billions, if at very least hundreds and hundreds of millions of people that do take a respite from their pursuing their commitments, if they ever pursued them at all, dare I say. That's not who you want to be, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. We're talking to people who want more, baby. Yeah. I love it. That you're committed, you're in, you want some of this, we got it. And we want to be there with you. So don't ever get in the space or the mindset or the paradigm of, I just got to do this till I'm, 50 or 65, 75, whatever it is, man. You be 120. You should be out there pumping it, cranking out your commitments the best that you can. Because why? Because that's where you can truly be happy. That's where there are no limits. And that's where your self-confidence and self-esteem will build. One last element, I think, and we'll wrap up with time's sake. And we can do this all day with elements. We can maybe do another podcast later, like a part 2 to this. But one more element over the building blocks of self-confidence and self-esteem. Decide. Take action. It's decision, okay? So remember, self-confidence is trusting your own abilities, capacities, judgments, a belief that you can successfully face a day-to-day challenge. Well, you need to decide. Always make decisions. Never be caught not making a decision. And don't fear making the wrong decision. Remember the boy who struck himself out. Maybe in that moment he decided he was going to be a hitter. That was the wrong decision. But he learned something from it, that he's a really good pitcher. So, look, the Navy SEALs often will comment and say that even a bad decision is better than no decision. Moving in a direction. Here we go to that same thing. Constantly engage in the pursuit of your commitments. Moving in a direction and then learning from it if it was wrong is better than not moving at all. Yeah.
Repeat that.
Moving in a direction and finding out it was wrong is better than not moving at all. Is that
so
right?
True? Yeah.
Okay.
So true.
Ladies and gentlemen, we love this podcast. We love you guys. We're so here for you. We love getting the comments and the feedback. We love meeting with you one-on-one when you call us up and set appointments. It's fun. We love to get to know you. We love to just be a part of your growth. That's what we're committed to. We're committed to you. We're committed to these principles, and we just absolutely love affecting things on an epic scale.
Yeah. Out there making a difference.
Have an incredible day, and don't forget to practice this, right? Forgot an invitation there. Let's not forget that. Let's put one out now. Why don't you write down some of those things that you struggle with self-confidence and self-esteem. Rewind this thing, go back, listen to the definitions, figure out where it is. Oh, one last thing, arrogance. I'm not going to close this without arrogance. People with self-confidence are often and falsely accused of being arrogant. And guess what? Guess by who?
Those without self-confidence.
That's right. Arrogance is an attitude. And look, this is Merriam-Webster, okay? .com. Look it up. Arrogance is an attitude of superiority, and it's manifested in an overbearing manner. That's not trusting in your own abilities, capacities, and judgments. Believe that you can successfully face day-to-day challenges. So look, don't confuse somebody who's confident with somebody who is got an attitude of superiority. Now, there is no question that there are arrogant people out there. But let's be careful, that we're not making excuses for ourselves for our own lack of self-confidence by playing the blame game and pointing the finger at somebody who does have self-confidence and calling them inappropriately arrogant. And I say inappropriately because it's just flat wrong. A lot of those people who are self-confident are not arrogant. Navy SEALs are awesome when it comes to this too, by the way. I mean, look, it sounds like I have a love affair with these guys. But
you do. You got a man.
You can totally learn from them, though, right? When they walk into a room, they own the room. It's a confidence, not an arrogance. They walk into a room, they trust their ability, their capacity, their judgments. They have a solid belief that they're going to face every day-to-day challenge successfully. That's not arrogance. That's confidence. That is what we want to aspire to. Enough said.
Beautiful.
Have a great day.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Principles of Epic Growth podcast, your path to epic performance and life with incredible growth.